dysfunctional vat on a Wednesday afternoon. I used the Kubota BX to lift the top part of this 21-foot log onto the sawmill. I used skidding tongs, and these tongs I got from Northern Tool. They lasted for quite some time, and then they got bent, and I don't know how they got bent. They don't work properly anymore, so I just use them for real simple things like, in this case, lifting. Now, let's look at our log. Oh, let's get back to our log. I put the log on. I chained the log down here so that it could not roll off. And I need to chain it again to make sure it doesn't log off while I position it. There we go. Now, it's been chained back up. As you can see, this is just a double hook and a single length of chain. And if you look, it sits off of the frame quite a little bit here, and we're going to fix that in just a second. I'm going to hose this off, get all the junk that's gotten onto it, the stuff. If you remember, I scraped a whole bunch of this off to make compost. But I'm going to plane this a little bit and start squaring it up. When I hit good wood, I'll quit. But I'll sit here and I'll just make real thin shave passes until I get this what you would call level, and it's not going to be technically level because of the bow that's in it, but that's okay. It just means that as I turn it, I'll get less and less. Now, it's not on the stops here, but what I did is I lifted it into position using the BX, and once I had it into position, I put the chain on it. I put this piece of pipe on it just to help it to roll a little bit. And then I used this pry bar from Harbor Freight to literally put the last of the log onto the thing, using a block from time to time to keep it from rolling. And with leverage action like this, I was actually able to lift that log into position. Now that is a solid chunk of wood, 21 feet long. I'm going to say that it's at least a foot in diameter. So it was a green tree when the wind blew it down. So it's pretty darn solid. The next thing to do is to move that over to the dogs. Use my tie down dogs here and here, and I've got one over here that I just put in. Put my tie down dogs on it and start planing it till it's pretty close to flat. Once it's very close to flat, then what I'll do is I will turn it completely over, flatten the other side, and then I'll work on getting a nice square out of this. I'll show you the process as it goes in stages. As you can see, I have flattened two sides of it. The bottom is round, the top is round. Right here we have this little bump which we're going to have to shave off. What I'll be doing is I'll figure out what the altitude here is, and I'll use a framing square to set my blade. The way I do that is I come over here to this piece right here, put my framing square on it, and then I raise my blade until I reach the altitude that I want to make my first pass. This index wheel up here is the greatest thing since sliced bread. One complete revolution is just right at a 1/4 inch. And what I'll do is I'll make passes taking off a 1/4 inch at a time until I am starting to actually get boards out of this, at which point then I'll determine how thick I want those boards to be, and I'll start cutting boards out of this. And as I get down here close to the bottom where I'm starting to run into these dogs, then I may turn it again, but this time I'll be taking the top and putting it down and finish cutting it. It's it's kind of a weird way to get wood, because like for example right here you have where something rubbed on it, and so you're not going to have a good 20-foot board here. You'll have whatever the length is up to here, and then you're going to have nothing, and then you'll pick up over here and get the rest of that board that you were cutting. But it does work, and I've used it successfully to do it this way a lot. You can tell by the sawdust over there that the pieces are fairly large, so it tells me that we still have a good blade and we're cutting through good wood. If it was rotted, which you can see just by looking that it's not rotted, but if it was rotted, you would get sort of a dust consistency. It's kind of hard to describe, but people that have cut rotted trees with a chainsaw and solid trees would know exactly what I'm talking about. What we have in this picture is, let's say that the high spot that we need is right out here where there's no frame to put this on. You put a support there, and then you come over and you measure this, and that tells you you're a little bit higher than 10 inches. So you would want to take this same support and put under where you're adjusting your saw blade at the same time. Right here, see if y'all can see that. Right here, I can place my framing square directly on this and measure my altitude at just about 12 3/4 of an inch high. So I know that down where I'm going to be adjusting the blade, I have one of these cross pieces, and so I don't need to take my spacer down. But let's look at something else real quick. If you look right there, you can tell that this log is physically off of the supports. So all I want to do is plane this log enough using the saw in order that it will lay flat on this other side, and then we will start in the process of squaring it up a little bit more and cutting our boards out of it. What I'll do is I'll place my framing square on here, and I'll start raising this up until I get my 12 inches. My 12 inches is right here, almost where I need to be. And there we are. We've got our height. We'll check the water in the tank. We'll check the flow coming out right down here on the blade and make sure it's correct. I took this apart a couple days ago and cleaned a bit of sawdust out of it, so it should be working just fine, and we'll start planing. This board, or this log, has now been planed flat on that side. Now these high points that you, or these hollows that you see down in here, once I turn it over, I'll start planing it down. Over on this side over here, I'm going to be getting good usable boards out of it before I'll be getting usable boards out of this. So let's say that these are 12, 13 feet long. I don't know how long they are, but let's say they're 12, 13 feet. I'll be getting good usable lumber here first, and then I'll start getting the usable lumber out of this stuff right here. So right now I'm waiting for the saw to run out of fuel in the carburetor. I'm going to take the dogs off, and once I get these dogs off of there, I'll be rotating it, I'll be dogging it, and I'll start cutting it again, this time into usable lumber. I have 7 full 8-inch by 21-foot boards out of this, 3/4 of an inch thick, and I have 3 partial 8 by 21-foot boards. And by partial, I might be getting 17 feet, 13 feet, 10 feet, 6 feet, but it's all usable wood. Dysfunctional vat out.